People love to bag on humid DC summers, but I actually love them. And what better way to kick off this summer than with Columbia Heights Day on June 15th? So the rumor is that this idea came about when a bunch of friends were tossing around ideas over beers at Wonderland Ballroom. And shockingly, they actually followed through with it. And now the day is still around 16 years later. So there's going to be a dunk tank, a mechanical bull, a bouncy house, and even a watermelon seed spitting competition. So come out to it. It's at Harriet Tubman Elementary School on June 15th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it's going to be fun.
Today on CityCast DC, happy Election Day. Be sure to get out there and vote. We'll have results Wednesday morning and analysis for you on Friday. But for today, we've got gas leaks at a DC elementary school, more news on the Adams Morgan SunTrust development, and can you be charged for skipping your dinner reservations? To get into all of it, I'm joined by Hill Rag's Liz Ogorek and Axios DC's Mimi Montgomery. Today's Tuesday, June 4th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Liz, Mimi, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Liz, I want to talk about what's happening with this gas leak at a DC elementary school. Pretty scary stuff. What exactly is going on?
Yeah, it is pretty scary stuff. It's not even a single gas leak. That school has been evacuated no less than 3 times over 14 days due to the smell of gas.
Wow, that is a much more serious problem than I had realized. When did these leaks and the smell of gas first start?
Yeah, the first time the smell of gas was reported at Shirley Chisholm Elementary, that's the former Tyler Elementary at 1001 G Street Southeast, was way back in Wednesday, May 15th. A teacher reported a smell of gas. The school was cleared and checked, and then they all went back to school. But the next day, the DGS, the Department of General Services, and DC Public Schools did a walkthrough of the school, and they found a pinhole leak in a gas line in the basement, right? So they did a walkthrough. They were cleared to re-enter. And at 10:38 that morning, there was another smell of gas and the school was evacuated.
Wow. Well, I have to do like a general PSA to folks listening. This is a good reminder that if you smell gas, don't second guess. Like, definitely make the call. You could be legitimately saving somebody's life by making that call. Even if you're thinking like, oh, well, do I really smell gas? You should absolutely do it, right?
Yeah. And the parents at Chisholm Elementary are particularly concerned. One parent told me she was thinking of the building on the 1200 block of Good Hope Road Southeast. That building exploded in January. The building was leveled and there was damage to the building next door where there's a daycare on the second floor. It's only luck and quick thinking on the part of those teachers that no one was injured. But now Chisholm Elementary has found 3 gas leaks in a 2-week span. And DGS, the Department of General Services, and DC Public Schools have gone in and repaired these leaks on May 16th and then again on May 28th. But then when they did a walkthrough on the 29th of May, they found trace levels of gas near the water heater. So now parents are saying they're not sure if they can have faith in an all clear. On Monday, June 3rd, kids went back to school for the first time with gas on. And many of the parents are calling for a meeting. They're going to meet with DCPS, the Department of General Service, and Charles Allen to talk about what went wrong, why it kept going wrong, and how can they be convinced that this school is safe moving forward.
Wow, so kids are missing school through this?
Yes, they've missed a total of 3 instructional days. Not just due to the gas leaks. In December, there was a broken water main at Chisholm Elementary, and the school was closed. So Tyler's slated for modernization in about 2 years, but there's a litany of problems the school is facing right now. Broken steps, water issues, missing doors in the bathrooms, and now this pervasive and very dangerous issue with gas has parents concerned that this school won't be safe for the 2 years until it's being modernized.
How has the city been responding to all this? I got to imagine they're dealing with calls from some pretty upset parents.
Well, the city is actually keeping pretty mum about this. You know that there's been issues at DGS with school repair, HVAC. It's been in the news. DC Council has been trying to hold the Department of General Services accountable. Right now, they say the gas is back on and all the problems have been addressed. That's what I hear from the Department of General Services. But parents say they've heard that before and they don't have a lot of faith in it. We'll see what they have to say at the Wednesday meeting.
Yeah, Mimi, I'm curious, as somebody who has written about all facets of DC life, is this something that you've heard about, like the threat of gas leaks in DC more generally?
So I actually was driving through Anacostia when that fire happened in January that affected the daycare, and it was really terrifying. You could see the flames leaping up into the air, the fire trucks, racing along. The, area residents were understandably totally freaked out and like a daycare. And so yeah, it's something I've been aware of and just reading about this. Obviously it's terrifying for the parents, but I was particularly struck by the lines you wrote up about how some of the kids that have been kept at home, maybe this was like where they get their meals for the day, or the parents were missing wages because now they had to stay home with their kids. Obviously you think of the obvious dangerous ramifications, but sort of the ripple effects of something like this is really impactful to a school community.
Yeah, and the Parent-Teacher Association is talking about the ways in which they're trying to help address the situation. When the water main broke in December, they brought in drinking water for the kids. When the kids were evacuated this last time on May 29th, they were evacuated to the Marine Barracks gymnasium, and they had to come up with a lunch. The Parent-Teacher Association brought in pizza. And now these children, it's true, many of the parents have the flexibility to stay home with their kids during these sudden school closures. And some of these parents have the flexibility to decide their kids aren't going back again at all. But some parents don't have that choice. Some of these kids could be at home missing meals, and many of them may not have practical supervision.
Yeah, it's a pretty involved problem, I think, and a real black eye for the city, for sure. Liz, what's next on this issue? You mentioned a community meeting happening.
Yeah, the community is going to meet with representatives of DC Public School and the Department of General Services and from Charles Allen's office on Wednesday in the evening. That's my understanding. The parent-teacher organization has already been pressuring the city in terms of maintenance of the school and building repairs. So Wednesday's our next turning point. We'll see what happens after that.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun, but with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. Partner Chris Nace is a local who cares deeply about the DC community, even serving on the board of the local branch of the Living Classrooms Foundation in his free time. Nace and his associates Samantha Peters and Maya Perry handle medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com. That's PAULSONANDNACE.com. Or call 202-463-1999.
Mimi, I guess I want to turn to you because I take my daily walk through the city and I walk right by the SunTrust site and Adams Morgan. We have a little news on that location, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you well know it has been sort of like a highly contested area over the past couple of years. There's like the public plaza there that people want to remain public. There was the risk that perhaps some condos might go in there and the plaza would disappear. But we actually have some news about the proposed plans for the site. So the nonprofit that will be building affordable housing there, Jubilee Housing, submitted its proposed plans to the Neighborhoods Commission. And the plans show that, not only will there be 50 units, 7 stories, all that good stuff, but there will also be a public plaza per the proposal. So they'll have a stage there and some displays acknowledging some of the history that's happened in that area. So I think residents should be excited that, should these plans come to fruition, there will be a public space for them to enjoy there.
Do you have any sense of what people in the area are saying about this? Like, are they excited for this development?
I actually haven't seen that much reaction to the proposed plans, but I would imagine just based on the history that's happened there, that folks would be really happy to know that there is like a place to gather. The plaza has been the site of farmers markets, like local events. It's like really right on a prominent intersection right there in Adams Morgan. So I would assume that, folks would be really excited to know that this place will sort of continue to be a gathering space for the neighborhood.
When we had first talked about this story, the framing really seemed to be that this was like a community pushing back against more commercial development towards something more community-based. I'm curious, is that a framing that you have seen sort of this story play out as, or is there sort of more going on here?
Yeah, no, I think it has been, a huge community push. To your point, several years ago, there was the chance that this might be developed into sort of these high-end condo buildings and the plaza would be taken down. So community groups sued, saying that the plaza was dedicated to the public by previous owners and should remain so. So there was sort of this back and forth for a couple years. And then Truist, which owned the land, donated it to Jubilee Housing, the nonprofit that runs affordable housing. And so now they are turning it into affordable housing and this sort of like communal gathering place. So it really does seem like, they really listened to what the community wanted, knew that this plaza was really integral and important to them, and are sort of making the steps to deliver that to the neighborhood.
Liz, have you ever spent any time in that area, or do you pass by there?
Oh, yeah. When I first came to D.C., I lived up near there, and there was a lot of skateboarders on that plaza.
Oh.
That's how I remember it. Really?
Skateboard plaza. There still are a lot of skateboarders over there. Yeah, they love that spot.
I was really interested to hear that it's been donated, but I don't know much about Jubilee, this organization that's behind it.
Yeah, they're locally based in the neighborhood, and they build affordable housing. And so, I think that the plan for this building will be that it's available to households at or below 60% of the area's median income. So it'll be like a really important and great addition to the neighborhood, I think, and awesome that they're keeping it local with this nonprofit.
Yeah, that's going to pump a lot of people into that corner and reinvigorate the area in a way. Eh?
Do you have any additional details on the development, like other stuff that might be there, or maybe even a timeline?
Yeah, so we do know they'll have a parking garage level. There will be a penthouse at the top with some office space and a community room for residents, sort of going more into the displays that'll be in the plaza. So actually, the plaza was the site of a theater in the 1920s that collapsed and killed like almost 100 people. So there will be a display sort of like, memorializing those folks. And there will also be a display that sort of nods to the neighborhood's history of resident activism against redlining. So really sort of like taking into account the history of the plaza and like what it means to folks in the area. And as far as next steps, like I said, like all of these are proposed plans, they could change. But sort of right now, they've submitted papers to the Historic Preservation Office. So there's like still more review to like go through. So we're sort of like up in the air. So stay tuned with more news. But seems like plans are unfolding.
I'm looking forward to it. I think, we haven't had a lot of changes in Adams Morgan since they put in the streeteries. And so I don't know, I'm looking forward to just some new life in that, particularly on that corner. I think I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be, a really great, continued sort of congregation point for the neighborhood.
Okay, Mimi, Liz, as two people who have been writing about DC in all of its facets for a while, I cannot wait to get your thoughts on this story. So this is one of those stories where at first I was like, they've got to be kidding me. And then the more I read, I was like, I don't know, they might have a point. So that is whether or not restaurants can charge you for canceling reservations for dinner. So first of all, just generally, what are your thoughts? Are you two people who go out to eat a lot? Do you go to fancy restaurants? What's your vibe?
I don't go to fancy restaurants a ton, mostly because it's so expensive now. Like, it's crazy. But when I do, I have had, restaurants ask for me to put in my credit card information, which I really do understand. Like, it really gives them a hit if you don't show up. But I will say, reading this story, part of me feels like there has to be some sort of like act of God clause where like if you get really sick or your dog gets sick or something, you can't make it. You aren't stuck with this like crazy $500 bill, And I have like grace for the restaurants because like how could you figure out who's lying and taking advantage of that and who actually has had some sort of emergency? But it feels like there's just this real tension there that I just really kind of understand from both sides.
Yeah. We go out, my husband and I, every once in a while. And when we go out, we usually like to try fancy. I have deep sympathy for, like Mimi, for these restaurants who, if people walk out or not show up, I remember there was a restaurant in H Street. Somebody placed a order for like a $3,000 takeout meal and then canceled it. Like, that's the kind of nonsense that restaurants just can't recover from. But I also have small children, so emergencies happen to me all the time. And my husband is extremely budget conscious. To be caught with a $500 bill for a meal we didn't have would take us out of the dining industry. Like, we would just never go out if that kind of thing was a consequence.
I mean, I feel the same way. I barely go out to eat, kind of like what you were saying, Mimi, because of it's so expensive. And if I genuinely had an emergency and I was expected to pay $500 for a meal I never had, first of all, I will be livid. So in this piece at the Washingtonian by friend of the show, Jessica Sidman, she describes the restaurant Plaza, which does have a fee, but writes, Plaza has ultimately charged for cancellations only a few times, usually involving diners who backed out within hours of dinner or showed up so late that they interfered with the next seating. The fees can lead to customers getting nasty. They talk to me in my face, the owner says. They feel empowerment because they already paid for something. So I kind of get that there is a difference between having a legitimate emergency, like a health emergency, an emergency with your kids, and flaking an hour before you're supposed to sit down. Like, I can kind of understand the position these restaurants are in.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like, how do you, are you actually going to go to someone's house and be like, is your dog really sick? Like, let us see, the vet bill. I think it's really hard. I have empathy for them, but also it's just, I think this speaks to sort of like a larger reckoning in the restaurant world in general, where just the costs of everything for these people, not only to operate them, but for folks to go out to eat. It's really hard now.
It absolutely is. Listen to this. This actually shocked me. Pineapple and Pearls has one of the strictest policies on paper. You pay the full price for dinner in advance, $925 for two, including tax and service fees, with no cancellations or rebookings allowed within 30 days. I am sorry. $1,000? I am sorry.
Yeah, that's like a cruise. You could go on a cruise for that much. I mean, yeah. I totally, from that point of view, a restaurant's at $1,000, I get it. You gotta charge people for that. In that case, that's a lot of money.
I mean, and to be fair, Pineapple and Pearls is delicious. It is delicious.
Ooh, I've never been. I don't know if I can afford it.
Me neither.
Might have to. We should all go. We'll charge this to David Platt, right? This will be a show expense.
Exactly. I'm in.
Let's do another interview there.
Yeah, exactly. Liz, Mimi, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us. It's so much fun, as per usual.
Yes, thanks a lot. This has been great.
You can't get conversations like this about DC anywhere else. So maybe it's time you become a member. For just $8 a month, members get ad-free listening and first dibs on our super cool events. But that's not why you should do it. You should become a member because it's the best way to make sure this podcast stays in your feeds forever. Just go to membership.citycast.fm to become a member. Thanks so much. That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend you want to go to Pineapple and Pearls with? You can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.